Who do we have? Is it Kirk?
Yes, it is our good friend of conservative think tank fame and Mavs Moneyball. Your friend and mine, Kirk Henderson.
Wow.
I was trying to explain to Dan what a think tank is. And I'm like, it's kind of like what Brunig does, but less of an asshole.
It sounds awesome.
Although Kirk more. Might be more, yeah.
Hello.
Hello, indeed. So, man, this is interesting because my friend Dan here, who I don't know if you formally met, he came in and he's like, hey, can you get me Kirk Henderson? And I'm like, well, let me see what I can do.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
How you doing, Kirk? No, I enjoyed your appearance on House of Strauss. For sure. And then I enjoy your work over the years, of course. And the other day when I read your article entitled, what was this? It's time to move on. It's time to move on from Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd. My idea, I don't do a lot on social media, but if I did, this is kind of like telling you I would have done something nice. I was going to quote tweet it and say, if I knew how to write, this is the article I would have written. Like, I feel like what you have been writing is exactly how I've been feeling throughout this whole thing, and I can't get enough of it.
I appreciate that. I will say that I think in terms of calling for someone's job, even for a site like mine, which is primarily Mavs Moneyball is fan oriented. There's some of us that are lightly compensated, but I'll just tell you, we're not there for the money. It's because we like basketball, and to call for somebody's job, I think requires a certain baseline of idiocy. And thankfully, today, it seems during their press conference, Nico Harrison once again sort of provided that baseline. And there's just a lot to be frustrated with. And I think we're on day 75 or so of this. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, there were two stories that sort of live in my head that never, ever ended. The first was when OJ killed Nicole Simpson, or allegedly killed Nicole Simpson.
Don't forget
and the
Ron.
second was the Monica Lewinsky scandal, where it's like every day there was something new. And this feels like the sports version of that, to where every time I'm ready to move on, like I really want to like look at draft prospects and get excited about nonsense. And unfortunately, we just can't. And it's driving me crazy.
Right, just because of them getting in their own way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what it seems
I've never
like.
seen own goals like this. Like, who is running that? Do they have a crisis management PR team, or do we think this is just Nico and Patrick Dumont going out and firing from the hip every 36 hours?
Well, and I had a problem with who's your guy, Josh, right? Your partner, Josh. He kind of did a post game on the Mavs final regular season game. And in that, he was like, well, that's okay. They rested everybody. That's probably the move to make. I had a problem with them resting people, especially after the Mavs they were trying to gain back some of the fan loyalty that they certainly lost. With the press release, you got it there, Clayton? The Mavs had a press release saying that if for their season ticket holders, if they made the 9 seed and hosted a game, they would give them free tickets to the game. There was a very small chance that they would make the 9 seed if they won that final game of the season. Where they're at in this season, to be resting everyone, like including PJ, if you're really going to play this game like we were trying to make the playoffs for you, pull that up again. Like it just says we're going to give you free tickets if we make the 9 seed, and then they decide to rest everybody, ensuring that they make the 10 seed.
It's black guy pointing at head.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. This just falls in line with just like you just said. They just keep falling all over themselves.
Well, and that kind of comes, that press release or whatever came on the heels of them begging season ticket holders to secure playoff seats. Just begging. And I think they brought, when it comes to season ticket holder stuff, I'm sure there's a lot of tiered options where certain customers get hit up a lot more. But I engage with people on social media. Some of the things that were sent to me was just, it's crazy. And I just can't imagine that in his wildest belief that Nico Harrison thought that it would get this bad. I've never seen anything quite like this in sports. And I really hope, with the exception of maybe Los Angeles Lakers fans, I really hope that no one else out there has to experience this.
Yeah, and I don't think that they will. And it's one of those things where I don't think that this is a common occurrence anyways, but now that it has happened, now no one else will go near the stove again. Like, I don't think anybody else would have been this dumb. I don't think anybody else would have been this insensitive to their fan base. But now that it has happened to us, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, haven't you been? I've been
else.
sitting around like, why couldn't it have been like Denver? They traded Jokic.
I do that all the time. Yeah,
just some other. We could have seen this from afar with, but there's only like 2 players that you could say this.
It's a short list, and I'm not
because
even
that's
sure,
how good Luke is.
And I'm not even sure that Giannis would have been on the Giannis has already won. He's a little bit older. Right. I know that Giannis means as much to Milwaukee as Luka does to Dallas. But no, I think your article is interesting because for me, I will not be a fan of this team while Nico is involved. That's a pretty basic one for me. I think it's impossible for them to make a right decision in the PR and communication process because this is an inexplicable, unexplainable action. There is no proper PR response to 9/11. Almost every response to 9/11 in hindsight was wrong. So it's very hard to have a terrible thing happen and then be judged on the response. However, I do wonder if tomorrow or after the play-in game, they said Dumont holds a press conference with Rick Weltz and says, I'm firing Nico. We're starting over. And he has some sort of a mea culpa. Kid is still here. I would at least listen to what they had to say. Unfortunately, I think I would be in a position to at least listen.
I mean, you've followed this team forever. It's a part of, it sounds ridiculous. I'm a 40-year-old man with a job and kids, but this is a part of who I am at this point. And to just to cut it off is extraordinarily difficult. And I kind of envy some of the people that I chat with that do, because part of me would like to be done with this. I'm busy enough. There's enough great stuff on television that I keep putting off to watch. There's other options out there, and the Mavericks have made it very crystal clear. Shoot, they even did so today during the press conference, that the customer doesn't matter. And until Nico is gone, and for me, Jason Kidd as well, I just have a really hard time being anything other than really pessimistic. And I don't. Part of my nature is pessimism, and it comes off really badly online sometimes, which is why I piss a lot of people off. But as bleak, the future is the future's bleak. I feel right now we're the dinosaurs that survived the meteor, and now we're just trying to figure out what happens next. And what happens next is death. This is 2027 to 2030 is apocalyptic. And until the Mavericks turn around and it's we can't do anything without picks. There's a lot of things the Mavericks could do. If they fired Nico Harrison tomorrow, they could trade Anthony Davis to somewhere else, so this wouldn't have to hang over him. They could try to get a decent pick in 25, figure out what to do in 26, play it out if you want to. I believe in the basketball gods, so maybe you end up with a little bit of lottery luck and you're bad. And then 2027 to 2030, you become an offloading site for teams looking to make deals. You take on bad contracts. You take on other cap picks. We've seen teams do this, and I earnestly believe the turnaround can happen fast because what it takes is one player. Unfortunately, the Mavericks moved the one player, and now we're spent arguing over guys who I like, but ultimately aren't needle movers in the NBA.
It's so sad that as you're talking, I'm agreeing. Yeah, they should just tear it all down. This is where we are.
I mean, I wouldn't stop with trading AD. I would trade. I think you got to listen on offers for every single player on the team, including Lively. Lively's valuable. His
probably
super
value
valuable.
Is the highest on the team,
without a doubt. And how you evaluate Kyrie coming up.
Send just go ahead and give him to the Lakers now. Why not?
Well, that's Dan Gafford. That's Daniel Gafford. That's coming soon.
Yeah, I think that is seemingly what people think.
Why?
Didn't help the other day whenever Luka's going through the line with him and he gave him we played together soon.
Yeah.
Now he could mean Slovenia, but
the new Mike Toby.
let's just engage in conspiracy thinking while we're here.
Well,
that's the worst part, I think, for me is as big of a grump as I am, I like the day-to-day grind of the basketball and not being able to talk about the basketball because the basketball is really, really not interesting when you don't have playable guards, that it becomes a real chore. I mean, my co-host Josh is an excellent analyst, and every couple of days he's just like, what are we talking? Like, what can we even talk about with this team? And that stinks because, it candidly hurts our business, and then hurts like the drive to want to show up and do it the next day.
Well, I mean, who could have seen them getting this injury problems? It's just bad luck, and players get injured. It's out of their hands. Anthony Davis being injured, you couldn't have predicted that. Kyrie being injured, you couldn't have predicted that. I like that bit too. That had nothing to do with anything. Just kind of happened. Well, I guess knowing that you have Kyrie, maybe you want to make sure you have Luka as well. I do think it's an interesting article too, though, to go back to your article, just because it's a debate. Like you said, Jake, if they made a firing tomorrow, I'll listen. But it's like I want Kidd gone.
Yeah, so you think that's a quote unquote package deal there, Kirk?
And I certainly would love if somehow the owner of the team said, you know what, my son-in-law turns out he is Tommy Boy. We're sorry, Dallas. I have to replace him as well. Let's go get is it David Griffin?
He's available. He'll win a lottery on you.
That's why. Because this is a very important lottery.
Yeah.
Like if they cleaned house, they would have to get rid of all three of them to kind of get me back. But still, I'm still a Lakers guy now.
See, and that pains me existentially to hear you say that. I was thinking about the first time the Lakers ripped my heart out, and it had to have been like a December 2001 game. The Mavs were on the road against the Lakers, and they were up 30 points, something like 28 points. Do you remember this game? And then they lost. And like, that was my first experience. And then the very next year I went out to California for college and had to deal with Kobe fans for the next 4 years of my life. I remember where I was standing when Kobe scored 62 on the Mavericks, when Kobe scored 81 against the Raptors. I remember what bar I was at when they wore the trash can uniforms to start 2003, or maybe it was 2004. So it's like, I get why people are following the Lakers, but I'm just like, I can't bring myself to do it. Give me an extinction level event before I have to actually support the Lakers. Though I do think I can't help but wonder if the Lakers advance far enough, if that is a narrative pusher to help say, this guy can't be here anymore, meaning Nico Harrison.
I mean, that's what makes it all the worse. That it is the one team also that most people just can't bear to become a fan of. But.
Yeah, and related to that, for the same reason, it's the one team you can't ignore. So It will, as Kirk said, the pressure will continue to rise if Luka plays well and the Lakers continue to advance. And why not the Lakers right now? There's no reason they can't. They're a very up and down Jekyll and Hyde team, but there's a chance by June that this does get Nico fired.
But on the other side of it, it doesn't seem that Dumont is in a firing Nico.
No, it doesn't.
Mindset, because since he bought in so hard and since he did the media tour afterwards to defend Nico, like they're in this together. I mean, I
Money
even alleged
moves mountains, though.
What's that? Money
moves things, and the money hurts. I mean, I saw a story pulled up. One of my friends shared it with me about the local RSN like apocalypse that's out there with just how teams are struggling. The Mavericks had created a pretty good business plan moving forward with the what do you call it?
Mavs TV.
Over Mavs TV and local airways, they had something there, and then they just completely stepped on a field of rakes paired with the season ticket holder money. I mean, I certainly don't think the Adelsons are going to be, they're going to have to declare bankruptcy over any of this, but they nuked the value of their own team. And I think at a certain point that has to get brought up, right? Or is that just wishful thinking?
I mean, my assumption is that is, as you said, what rules the day. And that's why I would think something like this, no matter how bad the personal acrimony could be, would never actually be acted upon, because at the end of the day, it's money. Like, this is going to cost you and is costing you a tremendous amount of money. And I do think that there's a financial meeting sometime in the next few months where Dumont looks at that and looks over at Nico and is like, what's the story here?
And that's where Dumont can publicly save face and say, look, I don't know anything about basketball. I came in. This was the GM. Yes, he convinced me that this was the move to make. And that's why I supported him publicly. I support all my, I empower my top
my
people.
Lieutenants.
Yeah. And I went with him, and clearly it was,
Yeah. There's no action that can reverse this, but to sort of get out of the well on a completely unexplainable, unforeseen action, it's going to take some pretty unforeseen courage from someone involved in the operation.
It surprises me that y'all would cheer for a Dumont-led team, at all.
It would be hard, but there's a way where he could just come forward and say, like, hey, whoa, I didn't know.
I know, but that was the line in the sand for me whenever he came out and gave his BS.
That's going to be
Colby. He clearly just doesn't know anything about basketball.
Yeah, that might have ruined everything.
That might have been.
Well, it ruined it for me because Nico could be a bad GM and be a little bit of a bitch in the way that he handled it, but he just made a bad decision. Dumont is a fake, and that was the issue with me. Like, don't pretend to know and then just run with it. Like that, I will never cheer for the Mavs while the Dumonts lead it because of his actions after the trade.
Yeah, very damning.
Do you guys think, because I've played this game and I like it, they do end up getting rid of those three in some way, shape, or form, and Luka comes back someday?
Don't see, he keeps doing this, Kirk, and I don't know. I've gone through a lot of personal development.
You don't like hope?
I just don't think this is healthy. She ain't coming back.
I mean, LeBron
the
returned to Cleveland the day he left, and Comic Sans and all that. There's no way he'd ever come back.
No, that was a different dynamic.
But he's being led by LeBron. Maybe LeBron could tell him.
The thing is, man, you need to understand that he's given it to her, and she likes it, and she ain't coming back.
I mean, how many? That long list of athletes that left Los Angeles. We know of it.
Yeah,
it's often spoken of.
Yeah.
What do you think of? What do you think of the debate on whether they should have even played a tribute video? Just because I kind of think they had to do it, but I also felt it felt really weird after shitting on him out the door, saying he's fat, saying we like a work ethic, we have a certain cult, like everything they said.
Don't take it with us.
Everything they said was, we don't like Luka. He is not someone that we want to emulate. Like, why would we play a tribute video for him if not for, because we have to? Like, that's what it felt like to me.
That's what it felt like to me as well. I appreciated Mark Followell's point about the people in the building that, loved Luka and appreciated Luka, but it just speaks to the bizarreness of the trade. And, it really says something to me that a conversation between, Sturm and the Mavs play-by-play guy is the only honest conversation that the Mavericks have had with anyone since the trade. And they just left Followell out there to die and have to somehow skirt the in-between between saying what he wants to say versus what he has to say. I understood his point where it's like, we wanted to pay tribute to this guy, but institutionally it doesn't make sense, because if you're being led by someone who doesn't value that person, it just rings hollow. And I just, as we get away from this, it's going to look perpetually weirder as time goes on, because I think if the Mavericks hadn't have been so comically villainous in the weeks following the trade, I don't think the heat would have been turned up quite so loud at that game. I mean, they created a fan rebellion. that should be hard to do. I mean, even with the with the injuries and things like that, you could tell during that game when Daniel Gaffer got like the back-to-back blocks in the Lakers game, the fans want to cheer for the team that they're there for. And they've just managed to really screw this up in a way that I think we're going to be talking about probably for the rest of our sports fan lives.
Yeah, my take on the video was it was indicative of the whole thing, which is that there's no cohesive plan or rollout to the whole thing. It's just everybody's figuring this out as they go. And I came down on the side of ultimately Luka liked it. It made Luka feel, and it made him emotional, and maybe that'll be planted in his brain of his time in Dallas. So I thought there was some value in it, even as you said, institutionally, it's very incongruent.
We, of course, have Kirk Henderson here from Mavs Moneyball, and now joining us, the managing editor of CEO Magazine, Ben Swanger, who got that coveted invite.
I don't know how I got it, but yes, I did. I was in that room with about 15 media members. We sat in there for about an hour. I think I have 57 minutes or so on my recording. So yeah, I was in that room.
You're recording, huh?
So there was recording.
Yeah. So last night the invite came out about 6:45. It was really short. It said no audio recording will be done. And then this morning, when we got into the room, Mavs PR stood up and said there would be no live tweeting, there will be no live streaming of this, and she made no mention of audio recording. So one of the folks in the room asked, "Can we record this?" And she said, "If you must, you can, but you cannot release the raw audio. But we will send a transcription of it later." Which I still do not have the transcription of. Almost 3 o'clock? So that's 5 hours later.
Well, I can give you a preview, Ben. It's going to say we were always at war with Eurasia, and it's just going to be just a series of the same line over and over
Well,
again.
the interesting thing about the transcript to me is that I've always thought the written word can really skew things. Like
It absolutely can.
if you printed off a lot of the things we've ever said, it looks really, really bad. But if you can hear the tone or see the, it's different. For them to not allow any of that just seems like another backwards move by the Mavs.
It's a really backwards move, and Rick Weltz is long in the tooth, and he was there today, correct?
He was, yes. It was Nico sitting at the head of the table, and to his left was Rick.
So Rick's done this forever, and this is all speculating, but Rick may have thought, boy, Nico doesn't present this all that well from an audio-video standpoint. Like, the Cleveland thing was a disaster. We talked to him like a week after he got hired once, before P.J. Washington and Gafford and Lively. And Dan and it was when we didn't know if Haralabob was still working for the team and all that. We had him on, and Dan and I looked at each other after and were like, someone's got to get to that guy and teach him how to deal with the media. Like he was way too honest. He came off as kind of flippant. He gave us great answers, but it didn't seem like he was ready to present his case. And if any of these quotes I'm seeing from today are accurate, he still hasn't had that training. So that may be the reason for the text only.
Today he was very stiff. His eyes were wandering around the room when questions were being asked. In his opening monologue, he said, "Hopefully, I can answer you guys' questions to the best of my ability today." And he was all around never seemed comfortable to me. He thanked us all for being there, which seemed kind of forced, like someone told him, "Hey, make sure to thank these guys for being here." But I came away from this discussion just thinking he just doesn't seem very comfortable in front of a group of people answering questions, which, I got the email and I was like, why not just call a customary press conference? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. So what was you were in there for an hour. What were you guys
I'll
asking?
paint the picture. I'll paint the picture for you guys. So on one side of the room, there was a breakfast spread of croissants, of coffee.
Lovely.
I don't think a single person touched the food. The main course was right there in front of us. It was Nico. And I think Rick Weltz answered probably 4 or 5 questions. and Nico answered the other 30-40. And there was a couple sparring matches between Tim McMahon and Nico in that discussion room, which is probably not what the transcription is going to come across as. But there was a couple times where Tim was the second closest to Nico. So picture ahead of the table. Nico's on the left, directly to his on his right arm was Newey Scruggs, and then there was Tim McMahon right there, second closest to him. And Tim McMahon was pushing on a couple things, but one of them was the training staff that Nico has let go out of the building. And McMahon was trying to get some honesty out of him. And he, McMahon said, I just want logic from you. And Nico was just not going to give it to him. And same thing with the trade. He said, I just want some logic around this trade. And Nico said, I have it down 7 times in my recording. Defense wins championships. 7 times he said those 3 words, just as a deadpan answer, nothing more, nothing less.
Wow.
Yeah. So any hope for the conversation we were having a minute ago, Kirk, of like maybe the organization is starting to reposition this and realize the headwinds and the currents out there doesn't feel like we're making progress on the relating to the fan aspect of it.
There's a phrase you mentioned, Ethan Sherwood Strauss earlier, he of ESPN. He likes to use the phrase "double down, don't apologize," and that is where we are. And that is where we may live until things get bleak enough for a drastic change.
Was there any? I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Take it.
Well, I was going to say, was there any admitting that the aftermath has not been great and we haven't handled everything correctly?
Yeah, if there was something you could do different, would you type thing?
That question was asked, and the answer was no. It was, do you regret this trade? It was no. There was questioning of, what they asked. Someone asked him about Luka as a person and what he meant to the city of Dallas. And it stuck out to me that Nico said it was after the trade that he fully realized just how much Luka meant to this city.
Sweet.
So
he was pretty far away from the situation, so how could he be fully versed on that?
So that sounds kind of like a yes, I realize something didn't go the way I thought it was.
That's probably as close as you're going to get. Kirk, what were you going to say? Strikes you as what?
It strikes me as after, when Seth Curry went to Nike for his presentation, it struck me as Nico probably uttering the phrase, well, I guess his name is not Seth Curry. It's Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Just the little details matter with him. And one of the quotes that struck me the most, Mike Curtis, the Dallas Morning News, has a question. Does Harrison have any concerns about the ability to attract top talent in the future, yada, yada. And he says something along the lines of, part of the fire Nico chance, although you would rather the fans cheer for the team and me not be the story. It's a great fan base and you need that fan base to win. I think it's an attraction, yada, yada, yada.
Oh.
One of the problems that I sort of get from all this, just me as a fan, is I really can't help but shake the feeling that he needs to be the hero in this story. He keeps saying, I'm not a hero. It's not me. It's not me, but it's his vision. It's his choice, his plan, his execution, but he wants the credit, but not the criticism. And I can't handle that personally.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. If we were to wind back the comments, if you go back to when they acquired Kyrie, a move that was panned widely at the time by probably everyone here, with good reason too, by the way. We were evaluating the Kyrie we knew, not the one that he became. But at that point, Nico said something to the question of, is this not a huge risk? He said, it's a huge risk not to make this move. And I was like, okay, that's a little bit like apocalyptic, like you feel that you're pulling the strings of the university, but okay, whatever. But then when he made this trade and he was asked about it, and he said, yeah, they would have saluted me for doing nothing. They would have saluted me if I just stood pat. It's clear that there's some level of hero complex here. My friend would call this just like business school disease. Maybe Ben knows about this from covering that world, that there is a desire among people with ego. A lot of time it's men where you get to a certain point and you're like, I'm the fucking guy. Like, this can only work if I shake things up. The idea that things can just work if you're a steward of them is not sexy. And it definitely has seemed to me like Nico has bought into. I mean, just look at what he just said. No, I think the fans are super passionate. They're yelling, "Fire me!" I don't know that means they're on board.
Who wouldn't want to play for that fan base?
They're fired up, man.
That's a Jack Donaghy quote. Like that. That's something out of the pilot of 30 Rock. He goes in and says, sometimes you got to take something that works perfectly well and make it your own. and that's what we have here. And I swear I was almost over this. It's not true, but I was having a quiet, boring day and read that. And then all of a sudden my blood pressure's back up over 100.
Well, it'll be Saturday night and Nico will be putting 42 on Ant and you'll be mad about that all over again. Speaking of that, were there any like veiled shots at Luka or anything you would have perceived as a continuation of that?
There was no real shots at Luka. I mean, he came out and said, he's a highly talented player, but he just dug into the fact that this trade was about getting AD. And I asked him, I said, well, if you're a whole, he defense wins championships thing. And I asked him, if you're looking at the term sheet before you're pulling the trigger on this trade, did you for one time think that maybe you should call another GM and see if you can get a better offer, see if you can get a better, plunder of picks? I don't know. And he said, no, this trade was always about getting Anthony Davis.
That's a fireable offense.
He did really not call anybody else. And it was always about AD. And the thing that I really picked up on too from both Nico and Rick was they're kind of playing this game of what ifs, and they want the fans to really believe in the what ifs. He brought up a couple times his lineup of, AD, PJ, Clay, Kyrie, and Lively. And he said that's a championship caliber team. They got 2.5 quarters on the court together. And then Rick comes out and he compares the trade to 3 different trades that he's witnessed in his long career when the Sonics traded Lonnie Shelton in the 1980s.
Okay.
And the Phoenix Suns shipped off Stephon Marbury to the Knicks. And then finally, the icing on the cake, when the Warriors shipped off Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut. And Rick said the ball came out of Monte's hands and went into the hands of Steph Curry. So I think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and I think fantastic.
Luka is not the Monte Ellis in this fake analogy he's trying to convey.
No. What he's referring to is that the Warriors fans were mad about that. Like, if you can find video of Joe Lacob with Chris Mullin on the floor trying to retire his jersey or do something, and people are booing because they traded Monte. But that's because that's all they had. It was not like Monte's going to save this thing. It was just, shit, this is the one guy we have. That's a terrible comparison, and unfortunately, I've been trying to hold out hope that Rick Weltz would come off sane in this whole deal. But I guess we're all on the bus to crazy here.
Well, he's here to build a stadium.
That's true.
And he sees that. Like, was there any financial questions thrown at him as far as value of the franchise or concern about the new stadium?
He doesn't have a concern about the stadium. Someone asked him about now that Luka's gone, and since the trade, I've likened it to in the business world, a company essentially throwing away their IP. Right? They came out and they threw away their intellectual property. Luka's going to come out and he's costing the team $90 million. Which another thing, I don't know if Rick Weltz misspoke here, but McMahon's report about the Mavericks losing, 9 figures, upwards of high 9 figures in revenue, Weltz revealed that was Mark Cuban who said that, which in the story did not pin that quote to Mark Cuban. It was a ESPN source. So that was another thing that I thought was interesting. But
he also didn't say it's not true.
He also didn't say it's not true. In the stadium, in the case of the stadium, he answered a couple questions about it. They're moving forward, full steam ahead with or without gambling legislation. They're going to build a basketball-only arena. Right now, they're looking in the city of Dallas. They had meetings on Friday as recently to discuss 30 to 50 acres somewhere in the city of Dallas to put this thing, which is contrary to the discussions that I've had with Patrick Dumont. But since that conversation, I guess things have moved in a different direction. So it's looking like we might get a stadium without a resort, without a casino, if legislation isn't passed.
So the Dallas Mavericks of Irving are not gonna. Is that not going to be a thing? That's crazy.
Well,
Kirk,
keep
just
in
putting
mind,
out so much information.
you've lived around here a long time. Saying we want to start with Dallas is the move, and then you give Dallas a chance to figure out if they want to work with you or not. And I've heard from people in the Dallas community that are like, this guy's very difficult to deal with. But that may mean the city's just standing up for itself. Right?
Well, and now the city has an out.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Yeah, we don't. This is not going to endear us to the city to make sure we do everything to keep the Mavs here. Who cares?
Yeah.
So when you say that's contrary to some talk you've had with Dumont, what has Dumont said in the past?
Dumont's told me that his entire real estate approach is building something mixed use. And 30 to 50 acres is not enough space to be this grand mixed use entertainment district that I think he wants to build. He pointed, when I talked to him about what he wants to build, he pointed to what the Rangers have done. He's pointed to the Star, and those are way more than 30 to 50 acre developments. And so, it was my understanding when I talked with Dumont several months ago that he wanted to build a casino, he wanted to build a stadium, and he wanted to build a resort all on one property. And that's 200 plus acres.
Which is closer to the site in Irving.
And they
with the
did.
rezoning. Yeah.
Despite the fan protest against it, didn't they pass that in Irving to say, yeah, we're going to do it?
Yeah. You can find a desperate suburb. I think that's been proven all over the nation.
Yeah, but it also was, they had like a town hall meeting just for show because they got no support. It was all negative. And then the council members or whoever just voted it through.
Are you saying that representative democracy is dying?
It just felt very weird to me. I guess I'm learning about life.
Well, I guess before we let you guys go here, this has been awesome. To the extent that Cuban and Dirk's name came up, I imagine that had to be, as you say, Cuban's already did, but it was not necessarily in the most positive light. It was outing him as a source.
Yeah. Nico brought up, or Nico was asked about Mark. Nico was asked about Dirk. Specifically, someone asked about, did Nico ever, consult Dirk about the trade? Did he consult Mark about the trade? Both of those were no. He said, why would I consult somebody who's not in the building with us anymore? And so that was essentially the extent of Mark and of Dirk.
Why would I pick the brain of somebody who's got some experience around this thing? Or
it's very odd because typically when someone hires you, you're like, boy, that's a mentor type relationship. I value what they think. To be like, the guy who hired me is such a dumbass for putting me in this role that I don't think to even pick his brain of 25 years in this league.
Can I read you the quote?
It's the hero
Tim
complex.
Cato put out?
Yeah, go for it.
My obligation is to the Dallas Mavericks. It's what's the best interest of the Dallas Mavericks. And that's the most important thing. Some of those decisions are going to be unpopular, maybe to Dirk and maybe to the fans, but my obligation is to the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, who to who? What is the entity specifically that he speaks of? Because you obviously the fans are not part of it. The team is not better. And again, the thing that rules the day, the bottom line, has not been improved here. So who is this Dallas Mavericks that you are beholden to? What are you helping?
that's the big thing.
The team's worse. It's losing money. The fans are mad, folks.
If Dumont or whatever, although I've read that Dumont isn't exactly the money-making machine either. He's more the Tommy boy of the family. But, you know, when they put pen to paper and say, all right, what if we had signed Luka to the Supermax? What would we be paying compared to what we're making now and what the value of the franchise is now?
Yeah, but you're forgetting he was going to break down. Drinking and not working out and the like. Well, this is fascinating stuff, man. So are you doing a write-up for dmagazine.com for this?
I am. I am going to paint the picture of the entire scene of what were those 57 minutes like in that room. Just, what was the mood? Try to paint the picture that that this transcript is not going to paint. So that's my goal. And last thing I'll leave you with here, and Kirk, you brought this up earlier. To me, it seemed like this meeting was called for closure. And Kirk, you said now your blood is boiling even more because of this. Nico said that he thought the tribute video, he thought the t-shirts, he thought everything they did the other night was going to provide the fans with the closure they needed to move on.
Oh, it keeps getting
And
worse.
here they are several days later calling this
hastily
super last minute, put together round.
He's a perfect politician for our times. Just
Yeah.
really speaks to what everybody's feeling.
Yes. Great
So
stuff.
no closure anytime soon from anybody.
All right, well, dmagazine.com, that's where you can find Ben's work, and mavsmoneyball.com. And if, I don't know how regular you are anymore, Kirk. I feel like they're beating it out of you. But when Kirk writes, you want to read it. So thanks to you both for joining us today. This has been great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See you guys.
All right.
Next time we'll get Kirk and Bruning together. Let those two.
Immovable
They're
force.
perfect
and
for each
whatever object. Okay.
How do you feel, bud? Do you think this is better now?
I feel good about the show. You
I feel
mean
good
having
about
those guys on? That was
That
great.
just everything about.
But
I don't know why I keep thinking that one day there'll be a day where this will be the day where something kind of makes sense. But it definitely ain't today.
It's never. It's just
How can he keep working here? I don't
No.
like at a base business level. I mean, how many times have there been situations? I don't know. Maybe this is what I know from movies and business, where some guy in charge is like, "Look, dude, I don't want to fire you. I don't really even think you did anything wrong. But let's look at the chessboard here. We're fucked. There's no coming back from this for you. Probably not for me either. But this is just not going to work. We didn't see that this was going to play out this way. Now that it has, there is no other option other than a clean break."
right, and the worst thing is too, he's just going to walk away with however many millions in his pocket. What does he make to be a GM? Couple million. Probably got to pay him off the rest of his contract. Like, okay, he can't show his face around Dallas, but he can go live wherever.
Oh yeah.
In any other city. He'll still get a job in corporate America somehow. He will. Probably making a ton of money. He's going to be fine. That's the worst thing is that press conference in Cleveland. What he said, like, who knows? I mean, 5 years from now, you guys might just kill us and we'll be out of here. And yeah, that doesn't make me feel better, knowing that that's going to be the end of it.
I was just going to say, it's like the TV culture or movie culture that we're used to of like the first 9 episodes don't make it, there's too many loose ends. How can this possibly? But then it always gets tied together at the end. This is just the worst TV show you've ever seen with nothing. The final episode is just us all being sad.
Okay, let's play.
Like they have to fire him. And like, what is Jason Terry doing?
What is their best case scenario for them would be that next year everybody's healthy and they win the NBA championship.
Well, you're not going to be healthy until after the All-Star game because you ran your 35-year-old point guard.
Well, somehow they made
ground.
Again, Nico makes some moves this offseason. I'm
Go
just
with
saying.
it here.
Somehow,
Okay, Kyrie joins halfway through.
KD.
Really good.
no, you're right.
KD's
you're right.
here.
Logically, they're not. They're in a hole.
But they win next year.
But somehow they win it all next year. Like,
how about this? They beat Luka in the Western Conference Finals just to make it as storybook for Nico as possible. Because it's either that or Luka has to be like out for the year.
Right. Yes, but I still am not for that.
No.
That's like if I don't know. I was going to say Luka's our kid. We grew up. He was our baby. We saw him when he's little.
No, their plan works out if Luka is like out of the league in 3 years because he's too out of shape. Because that's what they were betting on, is Luka is going to degrade to the point where he's not worth his money. And that is not a scenario that we want to see because we like Luka.
And I don't even think that does it for me.
But that's what their plan was predicated on, was Luka will break down.
It's got to be both. They have to be super successful. They have to be the number one defense in the league because that's how you win championships. And Luka has to break down. I'll still be pissed about it because, as Ben said, they're trying to ask us to play this guessing game. I know what it was like with him here. I know what he was going to make. I know guys wanted to play with him. I know he'd already been willing to take the big shot in the finals or the Western Conference finals or whatever. I already knew that way. So this bullshit of like, oh, you don't know how bad it could have gotten with Luka. No, I know what it was. This is the unknown. And even the unknown's not that unknown because it involves a bunch of guys who get hurt all the time.
And maybe it's just a small market in us, but it feels like we ride or die with our guys. You know, we're not a big market with these big fish coming through all the time. Even if it did dwindle down, and the best we ever saw of Luka was last year, I think I would have been fine with it because that's our dude.
Yeah. You're saying if things would have gotten progressively worse injury-wise, but even that.
We had our peak last year, the last 3 seasons, and it was awesome.
Boy.
Nah, and I think
and now I'm going to read this, and I'm going to get it all worked up again, but the whole... Just everything.
Dude, I'm telling you, the quote out of this that's going to be the one that like really drives people crazy is that one about the passionate fan base. Whether that came from Rick or that came from Nico, being like, man, it's crazy if you like kill these people's parents, then they're like super fired up about their parents. And I would not want to be their parent more than anyone else. Like, yeah, dude, of course. That's the worst example.
That's a good one. So they kill their parents.
And you're like,
people are really mad.
This guy, nobody loves their parents more than these guys.
So people will be lining up to come be their parents because of. I don't know. I was thinking the shopping them around thing was going to be.
Yeah, it's just more of what we know. You know,
the big.
We know that.
Yeah, but they
tried, that starkly.
They actually tried to plant some stories after that. No. They called Minnesota. They called Milwaukee.
Let's get away from this.